are learning how the nervous system allows you to sense your environment, process information, and respond. We will cover the central and peripheral nervous systems, neurons, action potentials, myelin, synapses, neurotransmitters, and how drugs like opioids affect communication between neurons. Mini summary. The nervous system receives information, processes it, and produces responses. Question. What are the three major functions of the nervous system? Answer. Sensory, integration, and motor. The nervous system coordinates all voluntary and involuntary actions by transmitting electrical signals throughout the body. Sensory function collects information from the environment. Integration processes and interprets that information. Motor function sends commands to muscles, glands, and organs. Question. Which function detects changes in the environment? Answer. Sensory function. Question. Which function processes information? Answer. Integration. Question. Which function sends commands to muscles? Answer. Motor function. The nervous system has two major divisions. The central nervous system, or CNS, consists of the brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, or PNS, consists of all nerves outside the brain and spinal cord. Mini summary. CNS equal to brain and spinal cord. PNS equal to nerves outside the CNS. Question. What structures make up the CNS? Answer. Brain and spinal cord. Question. What structures make up the PNS? Answer. Nerves outside the CNS. Nervous tissue contains two major cell types. Neurons transmit information. Neuroglia, also called glial cells, support and nourish neurons. There are many more neuroglia than neurons. Important neuroglia include microglia, astrocytes, oligodendrocytes, Schwann cells. Question. Which cells transmit nerve impulses? Answer. Neurons. Question. Which cells support neurons? Answer. Neuroglia. A neuron has two important structures. Dendrites receive incoming signals. The axon carries signals away from the cell body toward another cell. Question. What receives signals? Answer. Dendrites. Question. What carries signals away from the neuron? Answer. The axon. There are three types of neurons. Sensory neurons detect information and send it to the CNS. Inner neurons are located entirely within the CNS and process information. Motor neurons carry commands from the CNS to effectors such as muscles and glands. Mini summary. Sensory, CNS. Interneuron processing. Motor response. Question. Which neuron carries information to the CNS? Answer. Sensory neuron. Question. Which neuron is only found in the CNS? Answer. Interneuron. Question. Which neuron carries signals to muscles? Answer. Motor neuron. Some axons are covered by a myelin sheath. Myelin acts like insulation around a wire. Long axons usually have myelin. Short axons usually do not. Myelin greatly increases signal speed. Question. What is the function of myelin? Answer. It speeds up nerve signal transmission. Gray matter and white matter differ because of myelin. Gray matter contains little or no myelin. White matter contains myelinated axons. Question. Why is white matter white? Answer. Because it contains myelinated axons. Multiple sclerosis, or MS, occurs when myelin breaks down. Without myelin, neurons cannot properly transmit information. MS affects the brain, spinal cord, and optic nerves. Question. What happens in multiple sclerosis? Answer. Myelin breaks down. Question. Why is this a problem? Answer. Signals cannot travel normally through neurons. Now let's discuss nerve signals. Nerve signals are electrochemical changes called action potentials. An action potential is the electrical signal that travels down an axon. Question. What is another name for a nerve signal? Answer. Action potential. A neuron at rest has a resting potential. The outside of the cell is more positive. The inside of the cell is more negative. This difference in charge is called polarization. Question. What is resting potential? Answer. The potential energy of a neuron at rest. Question. Is the inside of a resting neuron positive or negative? Answer. Negative. The sodium-potassium pump helps maintain resting potential. It uses active transport. Sodium ions are pumped out. Potassium ions are pumped in. Because it uses active transport, it requires ATP. Question. Does the sodium-potassium pump require energy? Answer. Yes. Question, what type of transport does it use? Answer, active transport. An action potential begins with a stimulus. A stimulus is any change that activates a neuron. For example, a pinprick activates pain receptors. Question, what is a stimulus? Answer, a change that activates a neuron. Before an action potential can occur, threshold must be reached. Threshold is about -55 MV. Action potentials are all or nothing. Either threshold is reached and the signal occurs, or it does not. Question, what is threshold? Answer, the minimum voltage required to start an action potential. Question, are action potentials all or nothing? Answer, yes. Step 1, depolarization. Sodium channels open. Sodium ions rush into the neuron through passive transport. The inside becomes more positive. This is called depolarization. Question, which ion enters during depolarization? Answer, sodium. Question, does sodium move by active or passive transport? Answer, passive transport. Step 2, repolarization. Sodium channels close. Potassium channels open. Potassium leaves the neuron. The inside becomes negative again. Question, which ion leaves during repolarization? Answer, potassium. Question, what happens to the inside of the neuron? Answer, it becomes negative again. Step 3, return to resting potential. The sodium-potassium pump restores ion positions. The neuron returns to resting potential and is ready to fire again. Question, what restores resting potential? Answer, the sodium-potassium pump. Action potentials move much faster in myelinated axons. In unmyelinated axons, every section must be activated. In myelinated axons, signals jump from one node of Ranvier to another. This process is called saltatory conduction. Mini summary. Myelin speeds conduction. Question, what is saltatory conduction? Answer, action potentials jumping between nodes of Ranvier. Question, which conducts faster, myelinated or unmyelinated axons? Answer, myelinated axons. Now let's discuss synapses. A synapse is the connection between neurons. The sending neuron and receiving neuron do not actually touch. A small gap called the synaptic cleft separates them. Question, what is a synapse? Answer, the junction between neurons. Question, what is the synaptic cleft? Answer, the gap between neurons. When an action potential reaches an axon terminal, calcium enters the terminal. Vesicles release neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters diffuse across the synaptic cleft. They bind to receptors on the receiving neuron. Question, what happens when an action potential reaches the axon terminal? Answer, neurotransmitters are released. Neurotransmitters are chemical messengers. They carry information across synapses. The electrical signal becomes a chemical signal across the synapse. Question, what is a neurotransmitter? Answer, a chemical messenger that transmits signals across a synapse. Neurotransmitters can have two effects. Excitation makes another action potential more likely. Inhibition makes another action potential less likely. Question, what does excitation do? Answer, encourages another action potential. Question, what does inhibition do? Answer, reduces the chance of another action potential. Examples of neurotransmitters include acetylcholine, norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, glutamate, GABA. There are more than 100 neurotransmitters. Question, name two neurotransmitters. Answer, dopamine and serotonin. Important neurotransmitter functions. Acetylcholine excites skeletal muscle. Acetylcholine inhibits cardiac muscle. Norepinephrine excites smooth muscle. Norepinephrine helps regulate waking, dreaming, and mood. Serotonin helps regulate sleep, emotions, perception, and body temperature. Question, which neurotransmitter is associated with sleep and emotions? Answer, serotonin. Question, which neurotransmitter helps skeletal muscles contract? Answer, acetylcholine. MRI connection. MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. It uses magnets and radio waves to create detailed images of tissues. MRIs can detect brain abnormalities, spinal cord problems, tumors, joint injuries, and MS lesions. Question, what does MRI stand for? Answer, magnetic resonance imaging. Question, what disease can MRI help detect in the nervous system? Answer, multiple sclerosis. High-yield exam questions. Question, the action potential is an all-or-nothing event. Answer, true. Question: the sodium-potassium pump requires energy. Answer: true. Question: can an action potential travel both ways through a neuron? Answer: false. Final summary. The nervous system has sensory, integration, and motor functions. It consists of the CNS and PNS. Neurons communicate using action potentials and neurotransmitters. Resting potential is maintained by the sodium-potassium pump. Action potentials involve depolarization and repolarization. Myelin speeds conduction through saltatory conduction. Synapses use neurotransmitters to pass signals between cells. Disorders like multiple sclerosis damage myelin and interfere with communication in the nervous system.